And it's not my fault. The Starbucks literally took, I ordered it in advance and it took like a half hour. And then the Uber driver dropped me off like 3 blocks away. And then I couldn't find the building.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ian Bick's adventure in Miami.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Ian, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Can we turn the volume of my ears down a little bit?
Sure. Tell me when.
Where are you going?
Parking orders already.
Good?
Yeah, that's good.
Good? Cool.
Yeah, cool.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good to see you.
I like the new studio.
Thank you. It's Ian Bick in my neck of the woods for once, huh? That's cool.
Yeah. I told you I'd come.
Bro,
You didn't think I was going to come.
No.
I
Never crossed my mind.
I promised you. I said I would.
I appreciate that, man. Man of his word.
Absolutely.
How's it? It's starting to get cold up north?
Yeah. Escaping the cold to go back to New York tomorrow.
Dude, you came at the perfect time. It's like the weather's been amazing the last 3 days.
Yeah, and I missed the hurricane. If we did this last week, I would have had to cancel.
You did it like right after the hurricane. Perfect
No, but
timing,
honestly, the real reason why I did all this is because I find this is my first year I committed to an airline. So I'm trying to get upgraded for all of next year.
Got it.
So like this added to it. I'm doing this. I'm doing Austin. I'm doing Phoenix.
Everywhere.
And
You're
LA.
doing the tour.
Yeah. So now I have the medallion membership. So I'm good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it's good to have you. You know, this is the operation possibly to be. Bro, I have to thank you because a lot of good things happened to me after you put me on the podcast, bro. Like a lot of doors open.
You went viral.
I did.
It's always the one you least expect.
100%, bro. 100%. Yeah. You got people like looking up on TikTok, Nelson FBI story. You know, it's pretty sick.
It's so cool, the power of TikTok. Like I always tell people that. And that was just a clip of you just talking about an experience, you know, it was crazy. It was a good experience, but I didn't interrupt you and I just let it rip. And
that's what I love about your show. You really let your guests like just do their thing and just talk and say a story. I think that's why you do so well, man. Because it's just, you let people organically tell an experience they had. And that's what people want nowadays on social media. They just want like an organic connection, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I had to learn doing that. It took me a while, you know, a lot of comments, stop interrupting the guest and this and that. And then, you know, I got there and I got to where I'm at.
100%, bro.
Yeah, and were you on Fresh and Fit like a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I was like 2 months ago.
That's all you were on the show?
I was on the show. A friend of mine is co-hosting it. Shout out to my homie. She's a dating coach. Oh. So she bumped into
Myron?
No, not Myron.
His co-host?
His co-host.
Okay.
And he's been thinking of this idea to do like a dating show like once a week on the show or whatever. And she invited me. So yeah, I was on there.
Were you just sitting around like their big table with all the girls?
It was a little weird. It was kind of like we were all standing around the table because there was too many of us. And it was like, pop the balloon. Like when you don't like the person, it was fucking awkward, bro. And the chicks were brutal, bro. They were, but the guys were worse because the guys went after.
So were you a contestant?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going on his show tonight.
Are you?
But I think he's interviewing me for just like because of my story.
You guys, yeah.
I just had him on the show.
Dope.
He did like a lot of people don't realize that he was a former federal agent.
Right.
So that's what I care about.
He
Those
used to
are the
work
questions.
Border Patrol, right? No,
he worked Homeland Security. So he did a little bit of everything.
That's cool.
But he like gave insight on the Diddy case and stuff. You should have him on your show.
Dope. Yeah. I'll see if I reach out to him. That's cool, man. That's what bro, one thing I love that podcasting has done, like I've met great people, bro. You know?
It's all relationships.
It's all relationships, dude. Like, look at, you know, we met through a DM and I went on your show and, you know, it's been cool. Oh, you had a couple of people I know on, right? You had like Michael Siriago and
you know Michael?
Yeah, I'm the one that told you to have him on.
Oh, really? Okay, dude, it's crazy, man. Like
you must get a million text messages.
Yeah, I was showing someone my phone the other day from 9 a.m. to like that night. There was like 100 text messages. Jesus. Because you got to realize every guest that comes on the show, I give them my number. So you have old guests, hitting me up, always needing something, and then the new guests. So but I guess that's what makes it different and unique. But you know what you should do? You should do like what Kevin does and come to our studio. maybe like once every couple months and film like 9 or 12 episodes. That way it doesn't cost you anything. It's just the flight, you know, and I could put it together for you.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I'll take you up on that.
Yeah. I mean, we'd help you get you guests and stuff.
Definitely.
And, you know, that money you're using to rent a place, you could just get on the flight in the hotel.
Right. Yeah. That'd be cool, man. I appreciate that, bro.
Of course, man.
You see, man, you don't see that on social media nowadays, dude. Like, people are so fucking weird, and just because they have some followers, they think they're a big shot. Like, I've met some of these guys in person, and they're just like, it's like, dude, who the fuck did this guy think he is? I met you, and it was like, cool, man, this is so cool, bro. He's like got this massive podcast doing really well, and he's just like a super humble guy.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
bro.
I went to Nashville, and I was like trying to rent out a studio, and they were like, it's like $200 an hour or something. It's like New York City prices. I was like, well, can you cut a deal if I buy in bulk? And then they offered like a couple $100 discount. Like, I was like, it's cheaper for me to rent an Airbnb and bring my own gear.
Right.
No one's really willing to work with you and stuff. It's nuts. That's why, you know, like my second studio that you saw sits vacant half the time. And I think we actually renovated it even more so.
Oh, that's awesome. So it looks different from when I was there?
The second one, yeah. I mean, mine looks a little bit different too, but the other one that I have, I tell my guests, you know, like if you're in the area, you want to use it, it's literally, I'm there all the time anyways. As long as I'm not traveling, use the studio. I don't care. Like Kevin's coming in a couple weeks and he'll do like 12 episodes.
That's dope, bro. Yeah. I know the answer to this, but did you ever think that this podcasting thing was going to turn into what it is?
Fuck no, man. Dude, if you look up the stats for podcasting, it literally says don't quit your day job, you know? And that's why the bar is set so low. Like it says, like if you could be in the top 1% of podcasts if you have over like 1,000 listens or whatever, because it's so hard to break through. And you have millions of podcasts that are just audio only.
Right.
People make them. So what I really think they need to change the analytics on it and take out all the audio ones and just focus on the video ones, unless you're already a top audio one.
Right.
Because you have so many bullshit, you know, audio ones where people, and not hating on them, it's just they'll create a podcast, do 10 episodes, and they stop it.
They stop,
you know, it's not that it's bad quality, it's there in the catalog.
Yeah, and it's difficult, bro, to stay consistent. Who was it that said something about, he was like, once all you have to do is film 21 episodes or more and you're like in the top 1%. I think it was like Alex Hermosi, he said something, so he put out a clip, like statistically, you're in the top 1% of podcasts if you pass 20 episodes, because like 75% of people don't get past one.
Yeah, I mean, I do
crazy.
5 episodes a week now. I've filmed over 300 episodes, you know, and that's just awesome. In a year and a half. And there's podcasts like kind of in my genre that'll do 1 or 2 a week and obviously get more views. But when you look at my data overall, I have a bigger Spotify and Apple base. Right. And also when those are compounded views for mine. So if I'm doing 10,000 views on YouTube every episode, that's, you know, 50, 60,000 views just off the first week alone in 1 week on YouTube, then plus all the shorts and everything. And then I have my TikTok, which I look at as like my baby. That's like the gold mine from a content perspective, not a financial perspective, but the reach it has. Like there could be an episode where, say someone comes on and it'll get, I think a lower end episode of mine on YouTube will do like 10,000 views, and then the audio does like a lot more. But if they're TikTok, I can usually always make one clip from a person's story go viral. And a lot of it's the look. I mean, you had you sitting there dressed up, you were looking nice, and you were saying you got arrested by the FBI. So it's marketing mixed with your personality. And whereas a lot of podcasts, they see the same face over and over and over again. It's once you see that person's face, you're like, I know who this is. I'm not going to watch it. But they see someone like you for the first time on TikTok. It's a total game changer.
Yeah. And it really has become an art, like the art of storytelling. I think that's why podcasting has the resurgence of this art form, because like Hollywood is dying, you know, all the movies are the same. It's all the same bullshit. It's like reboots and like the same regurgitated stuff. So people are really looking for like engaging, like interesting stuff. I mean, your podcast, you know, prison stories, who doesn't love that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I really think storytelling is the future of social media.
For sure.
Because you have so many, like every time on my TikTok, you got a new dating podcast and someone just reciting the same thing. And there's a market for that. But you know what I always tell people, when you look at these influencers with millions of followers, a lot of it is fake, or look at their YouTube, you know, because you could have 5 million followers on TikTok, but your YouTube channel has barely anything.
10,000 subs or whatever.
Yeah. And a few hundred views, you know, because the days of the vlogging, like what the Pauls did and what these major influencers did to build that, it's not like that. And that's what these social media content creators are trying to do on YouTube. And it's not like that anymore. The market's too flooded. You got to switch it up.
Yeah. Which again makes sense why your podcast is doing so well, because there's nothing really like that out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't think of like a prison podcast. I could think of maybe one or two off the top of my head, but you came at it a different way.
Yeah, you have Johnny Mitchell, but with him, he likes those actual crime, like mob, or he goes a certain route. I'll have the average person.
Exactly.
Whereas he won't touch that. And I think that's what makes me different.
Definitely.
I'm more of like a Rogan or a Soft White Underbelly specifically for my content field.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you have Matthew Cox too. I don't know if you've heard of him.
He was on my show. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I mean, the only thing about
Ross was just on his show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The thing with Matt is that it's not. I would say where mine and him, the biggest difference is the redemption arc. Like he's more about the crime, and mine is more about childhood to redemption.
Right.
And that's where Johnny's lacks too. You barely ever touch on the redemption.
Yeah.
In every one of my episodes, we're spending like 20 minutes on childhood, then getting into the guts of the story, and then the last 20 minutes is about like redemption.
Definitely.
And I think that's where it differs too from these other shows, because those guys don't care about that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's their content. That's their lane. But mine, I feel like my bar is set lower for a guest to come on the show because it might not be the flashiest guest and the sexiest guest to sell. But to me, if I can get a regular guest that has an addiction or whatever story, and it gets 10,000 views on YouTube, 20,000 on Spotify and Apple just in the first week, and that's their story and lives there forever, I'm happy with that.
Definitely. And you're giving someone who never would have had a shot at telling their story or being showcased anywhere.
And it looks good.
Yeah. No, the production quality is definitely there.
Thank you.
Have you had a favorite one?
I love like the JD episode, because that was the one that really blew me up, because that was the first one. Like I remember it was the first one that got 10,000 views on YouTube, and you'll always remember that. I love like the good crime, and when it's mixed with crime and prison, like the bank robbers or like the Hells Angels guy I had Johnny Bart on, where you spend a bunch on their time, and these are like 2-hour episodes, and then you go into their prison stay because they're in like violent penitentiaries. But every episode's different in the sense where, like, if you're sitting down with a federal agent or a cop or a professional, you're touching a little bit about why they got into the career, and then you're focusing on like career stories. Right. Then you have addiction stories where you're just talking about like county jail stints and their addiction and the crazy things they did and how they recovered. Then you have like a prison story where, you brush on the childhood, they got arrested for the same stuff, and then they're going into the good prison gang stories and stuff. Right. And then you have the crime stories where they have a good crime but not maybe a good prison story, and then you have the stories that have the prison and the crime put together. So it's a good balance, because if I sat there and heard about prison every single episode, and I know that's what a lot of people on YouTube want, but I wouldn't do that. Right. So it's very different in that sense, and I think that's another reason why it differs from other people, other platforms and whatnot, because one day could be a cop, one day could be a victim, one day could be, someone that was in prison, or it varies.
Ladies and gentlemen, the familiar voice of your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., taking a quick detour to talk to you about the best jewelry shop on the internet, Gus Villa Jewelry. Let's be honest here, guys. Jewelers in Miami are super shady sometimes. I've even been ripped off once or twice by one of these self-proclaimed alchemists that ended up being these weirdos who sell you a bunch of stuff that make your neck and your fingers turn black. Let me tell you, after I met my boy, Gus Villa, he elevated my bling game. The Gus Villa team, these guys are more than just jewelers. These guys are magicians, turning metal and stone into your next head turner. Trust me, these pieces shine so much you can see them from outer space. Head over to GusVillaJewelry.com, and because you're a Monty, that's right, part of the Montana Method crew, you can use the promo code Montana to snatch 5% off your order. You don't just get hooked up with some shine, you get to have some dough in your pocket. Double whammy. So guys, what are you waiting for? Elevate your jewelry game. Show the world what you got. You got some style, you got some bling, you're all blinged up. Come on back after you do that. We've got more Montana Method Madness waiting for you. Now back to the podcast. I love how that genre has so many different angles you can take it, dude. You got the cop, lawyer, the dude who actually did the time, a mob boss, a regular guy like me who got involved in some fraud ring. You know what I mean? I love that. Yeah. The endless amount of good stories. It's like the juice will never run out of that fruit. It's so hard to find that nowadays, especially with people who like become script writers and try to make all this content. Like you see people sometimes on social media trying to force it and trying to come up with good content. And what I love about your genre is like, it's like, you don't have to force anything. It's all there.
And it's actually easier to do more episodes a week because then you're pulling less clips.
Yes.
Because you're putting the episode together itself. It's the hardest part is the recording.
Yeah.
But the actual putting it together, with the way technology is, that's easy,
Right.
That's so easy. It's the clips. And if you have to pull 15 clips from one episode, that's way harder than pulling two or three now from 5 throughout the week. And then posting consistently.
Because you just get the best moments, which are easy to pick out. Is like, yep, when he got arrested by the FBI outside his house.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just makes it so much different.
Definitely, 100%. What have you seen? So let's get into a little bit about your story and how you got into it. So obviously you have. Well, I actually don't even know the specifics. I know you've said it before on TikTok, but let's take it back. So when does all this kind of like, the whole thing, I know you were in the nightclub scene and then that led to, your arrest and then into podcasting. But so let's start like, not like childhood, but like adolescence, graduating high school and going into like a career.
Yeah, so I threw, it was freshman, sophomore year of high school. I started throwing parties at my house after I did like the cast party because I was in musicals all 4 years of high school. I never got into sports. Started throwing house parties, building popularity, got into a little bit of trouble and got community service. And then I started like this nonprofit where I was selling bracelets and doing like a charity dance for the local homeless shelter. That kind of sparked the idea that, hey, there could be a business here. Let me take this further. And then I created my own business where I was renting out a local nightclub and doing these things called teen nights where it was like under 18, no alcohol. And we called them raves, like the Christmas rave, Halloween rave, paint parties, like when Dayglow was big, but this was just for high school.
Right.
And it was, I was making like $10,000, $15,000 in profit in one night, once a month.
That's crazy.
And that was my first real sense into the business world. And I've always been like business minded, like lemonade stands, selling candy, doing different things like that.
Selling baseball cards.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I worked my way up and wanted to take it to the next level when those parties kind of started dying out because of oversaturation. And I jumped into the concert world. My first ever concert was with Asher Roth.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That party last night.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy. So that was the first one I ever booked.
That's cool.
And then from there, it went to Big Sean.
Holy shit.
We did Big Sean at an arena in Danbury at the Western Connecticut State University.
That's dope.
We did that and then lost a ton of money on that. And then after that, started raising money kind of from friends and family to do more concerts. And that was kind of like where the turning point starts because I go from the super successful kid to now, I'm way over my head. Like I should have just stuck with the nightclubs because then that was what I was good at. I was doing the hard work and that kind of relates to now why I'm so hands-on with what I do because that's always where I've had proven success. Right. It was when I took a sit back, I got lazy and I was just divvying everything out. The quality went down. I wasn't working. I wasn't promoting. I'm a grinder in that sense. So essentially what happens is we lost all this money on these shows. And I lied about the losses because I felt bad. I had taken this money from friends and family and all I had to do, looking back on it is just say, hey, we lost money and me and you wouldn't be sitting here today. I'd be at I would have went to college. I'd be, working at some job right now, corporate job or whatever I would have been doing,
Isn't it crazy? Those small moments where you're like, man, if I just would have done this one thing different.
That one lie changed my whole life. On that first show that lost money and I lost investors' money, that changed everything because once I told that one lie, it was a domino effect. And it just put me on this path, that there was no coming back from. And then, I kept lying and raising more money and doing all these things when, it was never in bad faith. It was more like I just needed time to pay the money back.
Yeah.
And it was just like a series of unfortunate events. And I end up paying that money back at one point. But then I take on more money. And I take a huge risk in another set of concerts with like Tyga, Chief Keef, just big names. We had like this bullshit electronics business that we started that me and my business partner, and it all turned out to be fake, like the Beats by Dre and all of that and the Beats pills. And we were still borrowing money on that pretense. And that's where like the fraud aspect comes in. But I was banking on these concerts to pay off. And they were on paper, like they were selling, but anything that could have went wrong happened. Like Chief Keef kind of stood me up, never came to the show.
Fuck, that sucks.
The Tyga show, we lost bus tickets because an Schmack concert canceled another venue. It was all these different events. And I basically, by the time I'm, almost 19 years old, I'm 18, end of 2013, 18, and I'm like $1.3 million in debt with the interest because I was promising people a 50% rate of return because I thought these electronics were, I thought everything was going to pay off. And the thing about the concert business and what I've learned the most about business is you need to have cash flow. Like in this business, there's cash flow in the podcast business because you have different sites paying you. In the concert business, you're laying out $250,000 for shows that won't happen 6 months from now. And then even when they do happen, you're not touching that money until weeks after the show. So we were doing stupid things like buying jet skis or buying clothes and going on trips and doing these things because all of our eggs were in these concerts thinking that they would take off, and they didn't, and they failed. And these kids, some of the kid investors, because keep in mind they're my age, and they thought they had lost their life savings because they thought that their $5,000 investment had turned into $30,000 because they kept rolling it over. So they go to the police, and the state's attorney declines to prosecute. So someone has a connection with the feds and it gets worked up and it becomes a federal case. And I'm 19 years old.
That's
and,
crazy.
After that, I end up getting indicted. And the craziest part I'd say about my story is that while I'm indicted by the FBI and the IRS and postal inspectors on 15 federal counts, I'm running this nightclub called Tuxedo Junction, which was the same nightclub I promoted at as a teenager. It had went out of business. I worked out a deal with the landlord to clean it up, take it over, get cheap rent. And now I'm booking acts all under indictment with the Chainsmokers, Steve Aoki, Adventure Club,
That's nuts.
21 Savage. That was actually my last concert ever, 21 Savage. These big names. And it was crazy. Like I'd be going to trial and I had a concert with Carnage, I was on trial from this was a Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., raced back home to New Haven, which was an hour away. And then I threw this concert. And I was doing all that as a teenager, keeping this afloat, borrowing from shady figures, doing whatever I had to do to make it work. I'd still have been running the club if it wasn't for me getting my bond revoked, because that's my personality, do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Why'd they revoke your bond? You seem like you were just a normal kid.
I was going out of state to gamble on bond because I was trying to pay off. There would be times, because at Connecticut casinos, you have to be 21 or older. So I was like 20. Yeah. So I would go to Yonkers, about 45 minutes away. And at first, I had my phone off. I took the train, this and that. But then I started trusting a guy that worked with me at the club. And he ended up snitching on me, turning me into the feds, and they revoked my bond for that. But I would literally, at one point, I owed the Chainsmokers $20,000 after the show. And I was selling off my car. I was selling off equipment. I was going to the casino. I would go to the casino with a few $100 in ticket sales, win the money on Baccarat, run across the street to the Bank of America to deposit them the money, and then go back and play some more. That was my life. It was crazy, all the time. People were blowing up my phone, whether it was for money or getting tickets to the concert or anything, it was crazy. It was a crazy experience. And when I look back on it now, I barely have photos with all these people I worked with. It's so much different because I never got to enjoy it. I have the Chainsmokers and Laid Back Luke and stuff. And I have the pictures of when they performed at the club. I don't know. It just feels like a lifetime ago.
And no, it definitely was. When I talk about my life before prison, it feels like a past life. It feels like I'm talking about somebody else.
Yeah.
It's, I'm sure you can feel, obviously, because your whole brand has been built on prison stories and things like that. Oddly, the worst thing that ever happened to you was probably the best thing that ever happened to you. You know what I mean? Because it's turned into this whole other life that you never imagined you could have. It's.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day. It's I would not have any of this if it wasn't for prison. So the thing that everyone in all those haters or the people in Danbury, the small group of people that wanted me to go to prison and stuff. Right. That was literally the best thing that could have happened. And they're probably so upset and angry looking back on it now, I think it would have been a worse punishment. You made me just work a regular job because then you don't have the story.
Yeah.
There's no story. It dies there. And it wasn't I always thought that the fascinating thing about my story was owning a nightclub at a young age and doing these events. But then I realized it's no different than like a Billy McFarland or any of these guys that have like interesting stories in a way. But the thing that made me different was that I was a young, white, nerdy kid that looked like McLovin in federal prison when all these guys don't talk about prison. Billy won't talk about prison, like to the level I did. All of these guys do not talk about prison. So I was the first one to come out at my young age and say, hey, I paid for protection or I did this. And that garnered interest because I attracted a demographic of like grandparents or uncles or cousins or parents who want to know what it was like in prison for their kids. And I'm able to honestly tell them that.
Sick, man. And for better or worse, I mean, it's just such an interesting genre. You know, like everybody's fascinated. Even to this day, I promise you, it's always as soon as people find out I went to prison, they're like, bro, so is it like on TV where, you know, you got to watch your back? Do people get raped? You know? And I'm like, dude, no, I was at a prison camp, bro. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's like a fascinating world.
It's like a taboo thing that everyone knows exists, but you can never see because you'd have to be there. And, you know,
and for so long, people couldn't talk about it. You know, I used to be embarrassed about talking about it. Now I use it like a badge. You know, that's my way to get into the door because that's what makes me different and unique.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same way. Whereas the me that did like. Before I went to prison, I used to view people who went to prison a certain way, like, oh, if you went to prison, you kind of, I don't know, you probably did something to deserve it. Whereas then it happened to me, and I was like, man, what happened to me could have happened to anybody. What happened to you, I mean, it was just like a series of bad decisions, you know? It wasn't like you were malicious. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see the other side of that, like, there's normal everyday people that go to prison every day.
Absolutely.
And when I look at people in the eye and I tell them, listen, I did 5 months in federal prison. I got an 8-month sentence. What happened to me can happen to you. They're just like, what? No. I promise you it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, they really can.
And it's made me a lot more compassionate, you know, like being understanding of people's situations.
Yeah.
You know?
And just talking to people, you know, and getting to know them. And, you know, we're really it could really happen to anyone. We're all that one mistake away. In
my case, in Miami, because I don't know if you knew this, but Miami is the fraud capital of the world. And I'm not proud of that at all. That was a contributing factor in why I got my sentence. But in your case, like in Connecticut, do you feel like it happened the way it was supposed to, or maybe it shouldn't have been so harsh? Like, what do you...
I don't know. I mean, like I always had like a bitter chip on my shoulder about it, but you know, in reality, the prison is what I needed to create what I have now. You know, I get people all the time that say it was a long sentence or compared to, you know, my counterparts that have similar cases, but you know, it's over with now. That was such a small chunk of my life, and it was a great experience, not while I was going through it, but looking back on it, I mean, that gave me everything, you know? I'm not going to work another job because I went to prison because I built this off of prison. Yeah. I just didn't know it at the time, you know? And it turned into this, and then it's really fascinating.
It's so... You had Jelly Roll on your show?
No, not yet. We're working on it.
Well, I saw you took pictures with him and stuff, and he was on Joe Rogan the other day. He was like, man, whatever fat nerdy kid is playing me on the video game in this simulation is kicking ass. He's probably telling his friends like, Mom, like I got this fat dude. He used to be in prison. Now he's like a multimillionaire, super famous singer. I immediately, when I heard that on Joe Rogan, I was like, that's probably what Ian thinks, bro. He's like, dude, this is like a simulation where like some kid is playing me in a video game and he's like kicking ass, and now I'm like this super fucking famous podcaster and I used to be in prison. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just a normal person, you know?
That's what I love about you, bro.
Yeah, it's just like I respond to people. I try to respond to as many DMs as possible because that's what builds a community, you know? And that will always stay that way no matter how big I get. And that's just, you know, remembering the journey and the grind and 100%. The process, you know. I maybe eventually I'll have to, you know, switch my number, but still use this one. But
have a secondary number.
You know, the biggest thing is people don't respect boundaries. Like they're calling you on Facebook Messenger. They're calling you on Instagram. They're calling you on Snapchat.
That's rough.
If you have my number, set up a call, unless like you actually need something, but don't just like blow up my phone calling me just to, you know, shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And then there's people that do get on a call with you and you give them that time and they don't even know what to say. but they don't have it planned out, you know?
I think that's why most people fail. They're not prepared.
Yeah.
Like opportunities come their way and then it's like, all right, what? Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do here? And it's like, you're not prepared, bro. So did you really, like, you don't deserve these opportunities if you're not prepared, if you don't come with like what you're going to do. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen that way too often.
Alrighty, guys, taking a quick break from the podcast to bring you a word from our sponsor, Christian J. DePaz. Appreciate him for coming through. He offers a phenomenal service. Guys, you know I'm a big promoter of entrepreneurship, owning a company, starting a business, doing your own thing and chasing your own dreams. But as the old saying goes, it takes money to make money. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christian J. DePaz and what he does. He gets funding for new and startup businesses. Christian, tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you so much, bro, for giving us the opportunity to come inside your podcast and help more entrepreneurs start their own business or scale their current businesses. So what we do here at Secure Funding is that we'll help you acquire anywhere between $50,000 to $150,000 at 0% interest rate business credit, so that you can once again start or scale your current business. So if you come here from our good friend Nelson, there's no that you're coming from the Mulhana Method podcast, and we'll take extra good care of you. With that being said, brother, thank you so much for bringing us on.
Of course. What are you waiting for, guys? Click the link in the bio.
And I also think a lot of people don't understand, like, if I film 2 episodes in a day, that is mentally exhausting. The last thing, like, I might commit to a phone call here and stuff. I really don't want to do it because it's just like, you know, I got to get better about like making sure that everything's cleared afterwards. But it is exhausting doing these full length episodes. And sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 in a day because I'm basically like recording every day right now. And you know, people don't see that aspect of it. Like I'm doing the editing, the clipping, the posting, the booking, and you know, the interviews themselves. So that's the only part, you know, like where it's tough because there's days where you just talked all day. You want to just be alone, you know, you don't want to respond to shit, and then it just piles up.
And it's like a never-ending pile of fucking unanswered messages on Instagram. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. So out of all the content you've done, right? Do you see, because you're a guy who's kind of like on the inside looking out, where do you see content going? Like in what direction do you see kind of podcasts and like social media? Where do you see that going in the next like 5 to 10 years?
I mean, I think if you're going to make it or last in the podcast industry, it has to be interview based. I mean, you look at like what Hawk Tua is doing, right? She blew up and now she's doing interviews.
You want to talk about someone who capitalized? She capitalized on it.
Yeah, but she's doing interviews, so she is going in the right direction. I think the days of just doing a regular talk show, unless you're already blown up, are over. And look at these celebrities that'll do a talk show or whatever. They do like 10 episodes and call it a day because there's a lot of work. And I think like the Spotifys and Apples of the world, they don't want to pick up like these mini 10 episodes things because it's not good for ads.
Exactly.
Because then you just have this following base that sits there and it dies out, you know? And a lot of these guests, you've heard their stories on other people's podcasts. So I think it's going in the direction of the Rogans in the world and kind of like what my content is. And those people that are doing interviews with interesting people. I mean, Rogan did thousands of interviews before he ever even got famous.
Yeah. Everyone sees him now, but no one sees him when he was in like in a back room in his office and when his wife and kids were yelling in the background, the dinner's ready. You know, like all that. I used to watch Rogan back in the day. It's crazy. I remember him talking about like when he was inspired to do a podcast. It was when he was invited on this thing that Tom Green was doing. And Tom Green had this whole setup at his house. And he had like, man, technology, right? Like now it's like a camera and a microphone. Tom Green had these like broadcast cameras and these giant fucking cables all throughout his house. It's crazy, bro. Technology's gotten insane. Yeah,
it really has. It's just like a whole different world now. And I just think that's the direction it's going in. It's storytelling. You know, that's what people want to see. That's what brands want to see. The days of unboxing a package, you know, and who knows how much those even convert to sales because a lot of people's followers on Instagram are fake. Yeah, and you can always tell if they have their likes turned off, unless they're like a Call Her Daddy or Alex Cooper, where they're doing it because they're promoting like that mental health aspect, right? And they're real and they're genuine about that. But a lot of these times, if you're an influencer, you have your likes turned off and you go in the comments and it has like say 200,000 views, but like 6 comments. You know, it's sketchy. And they're all like, oh, nice job, or emojis or this and that. A lot of these people are fake. And then you can also tell by a bio. Like if they say like 6X or earner or this and that. You know, I have guys that don't know about this and then they'll message be like, oh, you should get this person on the show, this person. I look at them, and one, they have no YouTube channel because they're intimidated to go on YouTube.
Right.
And two, they it's just fake. It's fake socials, you know?
I never understood the whole buying followers thing. You're shooting yourself in the foot because the algorithm's gonna like basically not even pick you up. You got a bunch of people who aren't even real following you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. And you're wasting money. Like, I just never got that whole thing, bro. For me, as long as I'm putting out good content and I grow organically, I don't care how long it takes, because this is a commitment. Like, I've decided to do this for the rest of my life. This isn't something I'm going to do for the next 5 minutes. So if you think about it, if you're that committed, and it's like, I'm sure you probably made the same decision, the results are going to come regardless.
Dude, it's a grind. I mean, my Instagram, I've just been grinding with it. And it's growing slowly. Like last year, in the beginning of last year, I had like 5,000 followers, you know? And you just grind and you build it, you know? You don't need that overnight, like one hit thing. And I think that's a cool aspect of this.
That's, it's kind of like that cliche old story of like, oh, this guy, overnight success. And then no one sees the days of like where you had no results and you had to show up and do your job anyway. I think it's the same with social media. Like people, like even Haktua, like you don't know her. I don't know her full story, but I'm sure her life had all kinds of crazy shit happen before she just blew up overnight, you know?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with her is she has to stay like true to what she wants to do and not go in the direction of like, because it's not going to be sustainable. I don't think she's a podcaster or an interviewer.
No, she's just someone who kind of like got really famous all of a sudden. But like I said, if she's smart, I mean, she can kind of keep it going. I don't know about a podcast, but
yeah, she'll find her shtick. Maybe her shtick is going to events and club appearances because she's viral. You know, obviously run with that fame.
Yeah.
But don't go into what everyone else is doing. You got to find your thing. You know,
definitely. So, what's the best advice you could give somebody who wants to start a podcast or like has been doing this a while and doesn't have any results?
I just think that if you're going to start, you got to be consistent and persistent. You can't stop it ever. Because you don't know which is going to be that one that goes. You know, for some it happens quicker, for some it takes longer. You don't know, but you have to go the distance. You can't stop.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go into this and think, you know, you're going to make a bunch of money in the first couple of months, because you're most likely not. But there is a way to get the views and grow the listens and the downloads and everything if you're consistent, and it's got to be good quality. Can't do Zoom interviews. You got to go a certain beats. You got to find a way to stand out in your genre. Everything else you can learn. And it doesn't have to look like mine. Mine didn't look the way it did. That took so many changes. I changed my logo 1,000 times. I've changed the set. I've changed everything so much. But it's got to be at least, you know, semi good quality when you first start, and you got to be consistent and persistent all the way through. And you got to do that every day, and you got to post every day, and you got to follow the steps. The interview aspect you can learn over time. Getting good guests you can work up to. And then just study other people and find your rhythm and see what they're doing and see how you could tweak that. Because that's what I did. I found what the other content creators in my genre were doing, and I tweaked it and made it my own.
I love that, man. Ian, it was great having you on, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate this, man. I got to go up north and see you again one of these days.
Definitely, man. Whenever you want to use the studio, you're welcome.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you. So I usually wrap up asking 3 questions.
All right, what you got?
First question. What inspires Ian Bick?
I just think what inspires me is that there's so much more of the journey to go and what it could be. Like, I just see that there's like this baseline.
Yeah.
I haven't even scratched the surface.
Seriously.
Like, if I just have this baseline right now, which is a really hard baseline to achieve, there's so much more room to grow, which is why I went to 5 episodes a week, because that's the max. I'm not going to do 7 because you need some days off, but it's like a show, you know?
Right.
And you look at the bigger picture, there's millions of people alone that went to prison. That's not counting addicts, law enforcement officers, everything. So you have plenty of guests.
Yep.
The more stories you pump out there, the more people will be comfortable with coming on the show to tell their story. So I just think that that's inspiring enough that there's so much more. You can't bottom out. It doesn't get old because everyone has a different perspective.
I love that, man. That's something I tell myself all the time. If I've gotten this far, how much farther can I go? You know what I mean? That's like, it's that question alone on the days that like I feel like I didn't achieve this goal or whatever. It was a disappointing day. Like, I'm like, dude, if I've done this much, like, how much more can I do? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I agree, man. Second question. What's next for Ian?
I'm just going to continue focusing on the podcast. I'm doing a lot of traveling this year, like we were talking about, but I think early next year I'll take some time off from just traveling. I really just like being at home, like being in my bed, relaxing, watching TV when I'm not working, being around friends and family, kind of growing that aspect. It's tiring and draining always kind of being on the move, you know?
Yeah.
But I also want to see the world and see different cities. Like this is the most traveling I've ever done. So I'm kind of stacking it and then I'll rebound and, hang back for a little bit. But I want to just keep growing, There's so much more. We're working on a book. We got some cool things in the works.
That's awesome.
We're getting there.
Yeah, man. Book deal. That's cool, man. You ever think you'll have like a TV series or a movie or something like that?
I could. I used to chase that for so long, and now I have this, so I don't need that. So I think it'll come organically. I think when the book comes, like we have a really big literary agent working with us, and
awesome,
he's
man.
confident that we'll be able to get it out there. And also, these publishers look for a platform, and I have this platform.
Right, of course.
So I think I'm closer than ever to get my story out there. So I think it's just a matter of time, and I'm sure that'll get developed into something.
That's sick, man. That's going to be so cool, man. Last question. How do you want to be remembered?
I think more or less not about my story, but for the people I was able to give an opportunity to and tell their story. Because I look at it like this: when you get arrested, it's one-sided, Most of the time you're not allowed to talk to the press because your lawyer doesn't want you to. And then, they're just taking whatever the indictment, or it's pro-prosecution, pro-government. Right. And then when you get out and you serve your time and you rehabilitate yourself and you're successful, the news doesn't pick up the article because it's not salacious anymore unless you're a celebrity.
Right.
My channel gives that person to have their own little documentary, high quality, to share their story and their perspective and what they learned so their kids could see it one day. I mean, I think the interviews I did with my dad are so cool because, I never met I never met his dad or anything like that, or his other relatives. So, my kids will be able to see who my dad was, and they'll get to see these interviews, and the same thing goes to people's kids. They'll get to understand it. I have so many people that went to prison or faced addiction that have young kids. They will get to understand who their parent was through these interviews. And it's like the new version of TV. I have so many people that DM me screenshots that they're in bed watching the YouTube video on their TV. It's really cool.
That's awesome, man. You're going to leave a hell of a legacy.
I'm trying, man. One day at a time.
I'm blessed to call you a friend. And I hope we get to, collaborate, work together more in the future, bro.
Definitely. My studio is yours, man, whenever you want to come up.
I appreciate that, man. You deserve every bit of success you're getting. You're truly a humble guy. You're a rare guy amongst rare guys. So
thank you, man. Same goes to you.
McLovin.
And McLovin in the building,
my
man.
Boy, Ian Bick. Great episode.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah, man.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.